Good evening or morning or whatever time of the day it happens to be. Welcome one, welcome all to the Writer's Block podcast. I am your host, Greg Nikas. Welcome to this special bonus release this week for our just in time for Halloween. Happy Halloween, or happy day before Halloween if you're listening over on patreon.com/writersblockpod. We get two this week for the price of one. I am sitting down with children's author, lifestyle and art brand designer, greeting card maker, truly a Jill of all trades, Sandra Magsamen, this week to talk about her latest release, the children's joke book Silly Witch. We will also talk about her philosophy for living artfully, treating everything she does with love and kindness, and how that kind of inspires her and motivates her to get from one project to the next. And strangely enough, we'll talk about the origin of the Ouija board and the familial ties that she has to that legacy. If you're tuning in on Spotify or Apple Podcast, please consider leaving us a review. Let us know in the comments what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, what you want to see in future episodes. Sky's the limit, you just have to ask. You can also follow us over on social media. We are at Writer's Block Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, where you can see some fun clips from the show. And of course, you can get episodes one day early over on our Patreon. That is patreon.com/writersblockpod. All right, let's get into the spooky episode. I didn't do a voice for the intro. I should have done a silly little scary voice, like, I am Dracula, and it's time to... sorry. Let's get into our conversation with Sandra Magsamen. You've written more than 60 books for a variety of age groups. You have won awards. You have spoken in public. You have a master's degree. You're a parent. You've started businesses and lifestyle brands. What makes Sandra Magsamen who she is?
I think that I have been on a mission most of my life to say two things: that love matters. Love is probably the most important thing in our lives, to have a life that is fulfilling and successful, and that connecting authentically with other people, sharing who you are and allowing them to share who they are, to build authentic relationships paired with love, is the secret to a life that is fulfilling.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We need more love and kindness in the world. I think that's where specifically children's literature and children's media come in handy, because they're, I think, distilled down, they are just the essence of love.
Exactly. And also for grown-ups, we all need that too. I write a lot for children, now, but I equally try to speak to adults, whether it's through greeting cards or I work for 1-800-Flowers, and the whole idea of living artfully I've been talking about for years, which is using art as uh, broadening the definition, art meaning any form of expression, and finding what your best way is, what is most authentic to you, and sharing who you are, whether it's baking cookies for a friend or singing a song to your kid when they go to sleep, or dancing if you find a song that you love when you're vacuuming. Whatever it is, find a way that expresses yourself in the most authentic way and live it and go for it, because that's how I think we live fully and we embrace life and who we are with abundance.
So Sandra, you're a very ingenuitive lady, with all your different stuff that you do, and it seems you come from a legacy of ingenuitive people. Your
Yes.
great grandfather and his brother are credited with the invention of the Ouija board.
Mm-hmm.
How prevalent of a thing was that for you as a child, and do you think that any of that influenced your desire to write? Just all the ghosty stuff around it.
Surprisingly, there wasn't any ghosty stuff around it in the invention of it themselves. My great grandfather and his brother, Isaac and William Fuld, were toy inventors. So in that way, they've inspired me in a huge way. They worked in the early part of the 1900s, like 1907, I think the Ouija board was invented, and they invented it as a parlor game. If you remember, history you don't remember, but the history would tell us that if a boy and a girl, a man or a woman, were dating, they would meet in the parlor and they would be sitting with the watchful eye of an aunt, a sibling, a mother, a father. They're never left alone in a room by themselves. It just wasn't done. But the Ouija board allowed them, the young couple, to put their hands on a heart-shaped planchette, which just means the little table that you sit your fingers on, ask each other questions quietly, and answer and communicate non-verbally with the planchette spelling out all the things it's meant to spell out. And that really was a game of communication, and it was a game of love. And it wasn't until World War I and World War II and Korean War, all those things happened where mothers and wives and daughters would start going to the board and saying, is my son, is my husband, is my father okay? Tell me what you know. At the same time, history also plays a role in a lot of inventions because Houdini was, looking to find if spiritualism was really happening. His mom had died, and if he could communicate with her, he wanted to. Sir Conan Doyle was saying, yes, it's alive and well, and he was visiting every psychic throughout Europe. So the confluence of all those things really propelled the Ouija board into its, historic rise. I mean, it was everywhere. It still is all over the world as a way to ask a greater power than ourselves. But the greatest power that my great great grandfather and his brother were looking for was really the power of love and the power of communication. And that is exactly what I do. I'm interested in connection and I'm interested in love.
I didn't know any of that about the Ouija board. That's really
Very few
fascinating.
people do, yeah.
So your love of writing started at a really young age. Can you tell us about how a farming accident paved the way for this just incredible journey that you've been on?
When I was 11, 12 years old, I grew up on a farm with my four sisters, my mom and dad. My grandparents lived with us too. And we were in a field cleaning rocks from the field. A tractor was pulling a wagon, for lack of a better word, a trailer hooked to the back of the wagon. And we were told by my father, do not walk behind it. It's very dangerous. Throw the rocks, put them in a pile, we'll pick them up. But my little sister Karen, maybe not paying attention, walked kind of close to it and it began to fall. And I kicked her with my leg, just spontaneously, just tried to get her out of the way. And in doing so, she was knocked out of the way, and my leg was pulled underneath of this large trailer that had been filled with rocks that we were picking up out of the field so that it could be planted. The men there, my father, they couldn't lift it, tried, it was very, very heavy, with all the material in it. And my twin sister was sitting close by a stream, and I kept screaming for her to come help me. Susan, help me, help me, help me. And she came, and in an instant, she lifted the thing up. I crawled out. I tried to walk, therefore compound fracturing my left leg. And I spent the better part of a year in a home and hospital school where I couldn't go to school. I was at home with a headset speaking to other children who were in accidents or who had cancer or very sick children. That year, I think, changed my life for the better forever. I learned my mother and my grandmother taught me how to knit and crochet and embroider, started making things with my hands in the service of connecting and communicating because we had Woolworths. It was a dime store back in the day. And they bring me home these little kits where I'd embroider smiley faces that say, have a happy day, have a nice day. I'd send all these little things that I'd make through my sisters back to the school. And then my friends would send things back, little, wish keepers and all sorts of fun things and little notes and stories and pictures. And so I communicated that year in that way with my friends through things that I made. And I learned two things that changed my life and that I've kept with me my whole life. One is that love is powerful and it changes everything. My sister Susan picked up that trailer that no one could pick up out of pure adrenaline and love for me. And secondly, I learned that if you don't say what you feel, you don't always have the opportunity to do that because many of the children on that home and hospital school didn't make it. They passed, and I never told them, that I loved them, that they mattered to me, that they got me through a really hard time, and I made very good friends with those kids. That experience and those lessons that I learned that year never left me. I went to art school. I became an artist, and then I realized that I communicate best with visual art and words, and that just like me, words fail a lot of people. They need other modalities, other ways to express themselves. So I went on, got a master's degree in art therapy, and I worked as an art therapist in hospital settings for many, many years, and then began taking the knowledge and the information I learned from my patients, that things that they wanted to say that they never said and they couldn't say to themselves or others. And I began creating ceramic message plaques with messages from the heart. I was pregnant with my daughter at the time, 37 years ago, and I filled her nursery with messages that I wanted to share with her and that other people had wanted to share that really touched me. And before I knew it, I had friends who wanted to buy them, and then their friends wanted to buy them, and their friends wanted to buy them. And I started doing little craft shows, and turned into a pottery company that then led me, to, business in the creative arts and in manufacturing and licensing, and ultimately to publishers to write books. So when you read the list of the things that I've done, you can see there it's very logical and step by step, slowly over a lifetime. These are not like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. One thing led to the next. I didn't know it was going to lead. It just opened up authentically as I pursued the things that mattered.
You definitely wear a lot of hats, and from what I've seen, you wear them very gracefully. So
Oh, thank you.
it's very, very job well done on that one. How do you balance all that stuff so much? I mean, you have all of these different things: your businesses, your children's writing career. You write articles for magazines and websites. You do all of this very cool stuff. How do you balance everything so well?
Well, I think number one, I do the things that matter to me. I do the things where I believe that they have the most impact, whether it's in a child's life or a neighbor's life or the school down the street or my library. I do the things that are important to me and that I think are my skills, like that of what I can do to make the world a little bit better place. So I think I've really identified what I love and what I'm passionate about. And that's the heart of it. If that's where I'm coming from, I'm living in the present and I've agreed to do and I want to do certain things. I just set up my day to accomplish them. I am a list maker. I think lists for me keep me on track, in terms of deadlines or I call them lifelines. So I'm a good list maker. But I think about like if I had I'm very visual. A visualization would be me in the center of a circle, and all the things I want to do are all around me. So they're all interconnected through me. One thing comes through me and goes to the next, and they're connected on their own as well. So I just keep following my circle of my world, and I am able to connect them. I wrote a mission statement probably 40 years ago to help people connect one heart at a time. That's my mission, right? So I can do it in a million ways. I can do it by creating an Airbnb. I can create a gardening program for children to learn that they can grow anything. They can connect with nature, which helps them to connect with themselves and their community and ideas. Everything is connected if you have that through line, and that's how I do it.
For you, would you say that through line comes from the phrase you coined almost 20 years ago, living artfully?
Yes, I think so. Art, to me, is any form of human expression. It can be baking cookies for a neighbor, making soup for a sick friend. It can be writing letters, writing poetry, doing a postcard. It could be singing a song for a child to go to bed at night, or singing to someone who has Alzheimer's disease who doesn't remember anything currently but remembers "Let Me Call You Sweetheart." It can be dancing when you're vacuuming. Whatever mode of self-expression hits your heart and feels authentic, that's art. Art doesn't have to be the art on the museum wall. It doesn't have to be the opera singer. It doesn't have to be the ballerina. Those are people who are exceptional in their field and in their art and with training. But art is, they're expressing themselves like everyone else, like the person who bakes the cookie. It's just on a different level. But art can be woven into every part of our day: the way we dress, the way we comb our hair, the clothes, the socks we wear. I talked to somebody this morning who loves to wear striped socks and really, really loved the witch's socks in the book. It's combining self expression with living. And that, if we weave that into every part of our day, in the present, it isn't any more work. We're already doing it, but it's recognizing that we're doing it authentically and it's touching another person's life.
So, as I mentioned before, you've written more than 60 books for both adults and children, including Welcome Little One, I Love You Bunny, and your recently released Silly Witch. I know you're not supposed to pick a favorite child, but do you have a piece of work that is your favorite, or maybe is the most meaningful to you based on when it was written, or maybe why it was written?
It is very hard to pick a favorite because they all really are for different reasons. But there are two stories. One is how I was taken into the fold of publishing with Scholastic, and that was a book called When I Grow Up, I Want to Be Me. And it was a book I wrote for my daughter when she was 12 years old because, people were like, what do you want to be when you grow up? She's like, I don't even know how to grow up. How do you grow up? What is that? And so I wrote a poem called When I Grow Up, I Want to Be Me, which basically says you have everything you need to be everything you want to be. And it's a gentle reminder of that for every child. I shared it with Scholastic and they published it. It was my first book. And I met that day when I went into Scholastic a junior editor who is now a bigwig editor in the universe, and she is still my editor at Scholastic. She grew up at Scholastic as I did, and she is still with me today, and we have an amazing relationship. She's an incredible collaborator. So that was the first book I did with her. And then she went on to another publishing company years later. She went back to Scholastic after all. But in the meantime, I wrote a poem, I'd written a poem for my daughter when I was carrying her, and I mentioned it, and she goes, "I think that could be a book. I think that's a really great idea." And so I wrote a book called Welcome Little One. And so those two books, because they're for my daughter and they just express this deep well of love for not only my daughter, but for children, and how important it is to let them know how amazing they are and that they are a gift, and we're going to help them follow their dreams. There are promises we make that we will always keep to them. So those two books hold a really very deep place in my heart. Both have kind of grown up, and they, when I grew up, I Want to Be Me was just reissued after 25 years. So it's out in the world again. And When I Grow Up, I Want to Be Me, it left that publishing house that it was initially in, and it was taken to another publishing home. And that book has just been incredible. And it's started a whole new world for Little One, who is a character, where we're building that into a whole series for little ones. But with Scholastic, Liza is my editor, and she and I have been able to create a whole world of books, more than 60 books. With Scholastic, I think we've done more than like 80 books by this point. And they really are about combining the board book for a young child from 0 to 4 with a great solid board book with an amazing piece of poetry, but with a three-dimensional component to it. So, for example, I was going to say this book is my favorite, but it's hard to pick them. But I Love You Even When You're Crabby, and that book has a big crab on the front. The claws are made out of fabric above it, so the child can hold on to those claws. And when a child is having a rotten day and they are feeling crabby, this book gives the parents a tool to help use the child understand that everybody feels crabby from time to time. It's not the end of the world. It'll pass. They're still going to be loved no matter what, but it helps them find the tools to turn that frown upside down into a smile. That's what my editor and I have been able to do all these years, is create books that are meaningful for families and children, utilizing these novelty ideas that are inventions in publishing that take the book to a new kind of marriage between something for a child to hold on to, like a stuffed animal or a lovey, and blend it with a book to create this new kind of format. And it's been called, the people call them books on steroids and all that. There's fun ways to describe them, but it's really, when you think about children today who are feeling so isolated, and we see that in all kinds of testing results from all kinds of researchers, these books, you sit down with a child, so immediately they're with somebody. They're hanging out, they're reading, they're exploring, they're engaging, they're playing with another person, as opposed to being on a tablet or a phone or a computer where they're engaging with the screen. And so this is really important for childhood development. From 0 to 3, the brain will never ever develop as quickly and as deeply as it will from the first 3 years of a child's life. So the more that kid is engaged and involved and making connections physically, emotionally, socially, it's so important. And books are the perfect tool to do that, because they're reading with someone right away. That's that bonding and that connection starts, and the engagement and the interaction starts.
How has writing and creating for children changed over the course of 30 plus years? Is it just kind of learning more about how the brain develops, or is it just a lot of trial and error?
That's a good point. It's a lot of things. 30 years ago, we didn't have phones, we didn't have tablets, we didn't have any of that to occupy children's time. Books were really that format. That. And books have been, innovative. Board book, first there were picture books, then board books came into being, and novelty board books have become really important over the last, say 10 years. As children and society, I mean, you go back to my Ouija board story. The reason the Ouija board was so successful is because there were conflicts, and there was an interest in spiritualism, and that elevated that product, into this communication mode that was outside of its original form. The same with books. Now, books that are interactive and that help connection are more important than ever because of what's going in society. Coming out of pandemic, post pandemic, kids are isolated, they're alone, they don't have communication skills. I spoke to somebody earlier today and they said their child is now in second grade and they were in preschool when the pandemic hit. They didn't even know how to say hello to another kid because they weren't going out of the house until 2 years later. So they're learning these skills that most kids would have learned then. So we wrote a book a few years ago called Hello You. It's all the ways you say hello, all different fun ways. That's a need in books. So we're looking at what's the need for children and families and creating books that give parents tools to be able to address scenarios and concerns and issues for children, but in a way that is similar to milk and cookies. The cookie is delicious and it's filled with sugar and it's yummy, and as are our books, are delightful to look at, and they're wonderful, and they're fun and they're engaging. And the milk is the nutrition. The milk is all the stuff we weave in it that help a child build bonds, flourish, learn language, learn numbers, learn about colors, talk about their feelings, engage in the world. Books couldn't be more important than they ever have been, as far as I'm concerned, because of all the things that are innately, systemically built into these pages and how we process them and how we read them with children. You have to, when you read to a child, they sit next to you. You're sitting heart to heart. So right away you have a connection. Right away that isolation ends. And if you're in a classroom, an educator is putting the children together in a room, she's reading to a group, and now the whole group is engaged. So isolation again begins to diminish.
With your latest work, your latest project, Silly Witch, it's a latest and greatest picture book for the kiddos, but not your first time dabbling on, I guess, the spookier side of things. What inspired you to put together this joke book, and what about Halloween do you enjoy so much?
I've been doing Halloween books. I think I've done 5 or 6 Halloween books over the years. And they're just fun. The word boo is really fun. It rhymes with a lot of words. And there's, great icons with pumpkins and witches and goblins and all sorts of things to play around with in terms of an artist. That's the great illustrations to do. Halloween checks all the buttons for me. So, you think about it. Halloween is such a creative holiday. Kids get to decide what they're going to be. They could be an astronaut. They could be a superhero. They could be a character from television. They begin to think about what's identity? What can I be? How can I dress up? And then either the parents help them go to a store and pick up a costume, or they make it. So there's a whole creative story there that I love in terms of who do I want to be? And they can begin to explore that, which every year is a different exploration. And I think that's incredible. And then, there's just joy and fun. Here in our village in Vermont, there's a parade. So not only do you visit the houses and get candy, but then the whole village comes together and we have a parade down the street. And afterwards, there's a bonfire, and hot dogs are given by the Lions Club, and popcorn, and all that good stuff. And so it's just a wonderful celebration of moving from summer to fall and of community. And again, we're right back to connection. And for me, I thought about, I don't want children to be scared on Halloween because for me it's joyous. So I thought, why don't we take something that can be scary, like a witch, and make her delightful and silly and goofy and tell jokes that make us laugh. And so that's sort of how that whole thing sort of was spinning around in my head to come up with this idea. And there's lots of jokes, but why are jokes important? Because when a child, first off, when you read the book, after 2 readings, the child will have memorized every single joke and every single pun, every single line, everything single joke line. So they then are going to be telling the jokes everywhere. And when a child tells a joke, they then become confident. They have self-esteem. They have agency. They're able to connect in a room and make somebody laugh. And all of a sudden, they're important.
Well, this has been a delight talking to you. Thank you so much. Before we run out of time, though, I just wanted to ask, what is your favorite joke from Silly Witch?
Oh, how do you make a witch itch?
How?
You take out the W.
Hey! It's been great. Sandra, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Where can people go to find more of your work?
Well, of course, Scholastic has an amazing website. You're certainly welcome to go there. I have a website. It's myname.com. Also on Instagram, my name, Sandra Magsamen, Magsamen. And the book is available on your favorite online store. um, uh, independent bookshops, big stores, anywhere books are sold. And if it's not there, just ask your bookstore owner to buy it, to bring it in for you. And they're happy to do that. Bookstores have been so supportive over all these years. I love them, and they're there for their customers.
Yeah. Sandra, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast
Thank
today.
you. It was really wonderful. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Coming up next time on the Writer's Block podcast, Taylor and I are back. The dynamic duo returns, and we're back on our nonsense, our scatterbrained nonsense pretty quickly. After a few life updates, we will talk all about our thoughts on the ethical implementation of AI in art and writing, our teenage pop punk bands making comebacks and putting out new music in 2025, and then Taylor will declare war on Taylor Swift. So that will be that'll be something.
A lot of my coworkers are big Taylor Swift fans. When they bring up, they're like, how could you not like her? It's not fair. It's so sexist that she's not allowed to talk about her problems or like her man problems or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's actually not my critique of her at all. And then I go into my spiel, and then they are like, oh, okay, I'm going to walk away now.
Yeah.
So
you're saying
we'll just start by saying I don't like her.
Yeah. You're saying facts that I cannot defend, so I am done with this conversation. If you're enjoying the Writer's Block podcast, please consider leaving us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcast. Let us know how we're doing in the comments. Tell us, your favorite moment from the episode. Tell us what you want to see next. Tell us guests you want to see. Tell me that I'm a snazzy dresser today. It's an audio podcast, but I'd still really like to hear it. Don't forget to follow us over on social media. We are at Writers Block Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, where you can see some clips from the episodes. And then you can tell me that I'm dressed snazzy today. There you go. That's how you'll find out. Just go to social media, and then you can see what I'm wearing, and then you can compliment all my lovely sweaters. And for episodes one day early, you can find us over on Patreon. That is patreon.com/writersblockpod. Still working on some paid content over there, but for right now, just please go and enjoy it. Check it out. Homepage and all that jazz. Early access. Buzzwords. Synergy. I'm having a stroke. Oh my god, I'm all over the place today. And until next time, guys, I have been Greg. You have been awesome. And please, keep writing.